Hello and welcome to this lecture. Today we are going to discuss cholinomimetic toxicity, and they are direct acting muscarinic stimulant intoxication, and the main thing is that they are usually found in mushrooms. And actually the stimulant, which is muscarine, actually the name of the muscarinic receptor is actually come from this word muscarine. And this muscarine was first isolated from Amanita muscaria by a German chemist in 1869. Symptoms will develop around 30 to 60 minutes after the ingestion, and the excess use of muscarinic will lead to diarrhea, salivation, sweating, and bronchoconstriction. And if you need to memorize, how can you memorize? Take the capital word of each of the toxication. D for diarrhea, S for salivation, S for sweating, and B for bronchoconstriction. So you can memorize with this word DSSB. Treatment, how can we do treatment for that? Uh, Atropine is the common drug of choice in that intoxication, and supportive care is also helpful for patient having intoxication with muscarinic excess. Then we have direct acting nicotinic stimulant intoxication, and we classify into two types. One is acute and the other one is chronic toxicity. And when we talk about acute toxicity, the fatal dose is around 40 milligram. Symptoms consist of convulsion, coma, respiratory arrest, respiratory paralysis, hypertension, and arrhythmia. So if you need to memorize with that symptoms, take capital word C for convulsion, C for coma, R for respiratory arrest, R for respiratory paralysis, H for hypertension, and A for arrhythmia. So you can memorize with this keyword, which is you can pronounce whatever you want to pronounce. Treatment will be depending upon symptom. So symptom oriented treatment will be do for the patient having acute toxicity of nicotinic stimulants. And if you take a look of nicotinic stimulant, the most common example is tobacco, smoking, cigarette. And if a person smoke a too much number of cigarettes in one day, convulsions, coma, and respiratory arrest is actually leads to the nicotinic stimulant. So you must need to understand, or if you need to memorize, the common example is smoking. Then we have chronic toxicities, and they already mentioned in chronic toxicities, the tobacco use is one of them, and recurrent ulcers also there, vascular disease, and sudden coronary death. And the treatment for that is when nicillin has been given for the patient having chronic toxicities. So you need to understand this thing. And actually, if we take a look, I put some other indirecting agents, as we before discussed the direct agents. Now we are going to discuss indirecting agents, and specifically the use of organophosphate poisoning. And actually the problem of this indirecting agent that they are distributed through whole part of the body through central nervous system, which is a main thing. And it is usually accidental, it is not planned. As we know that nicotinic poisoning is planned. How? If you smoke, you know that smoking is not good for the health, but people still smoke because they are dependent on them. So but in case of organophosphate poisoning, it is more likely to be accidental or suicidal, sometime because of the industrial, agricultural insecticides, warfare agents such as sarin, which is very potent, life threatening, and that within few minutes. And during biological warfare or chemical warfare, uh, these agents has been used for death within minutes, but actually now these all have been banned. Then we have acute toxicity, which consists of the signs and symptoms like meiosis, salivation, sweating, vomiting, diarrhea. And if you take the capital word of each of the signs, M for meiosis, S for salivation, S for sweating, V for vomiting, D for diarrhea. You can pronounce in what way you are comfortable with. Then the CNS effect we mentioned here follow rapidly. Treatment will be given using atropine and paralidoxime. And the chronic toxicity is in this case is neuropathy. And I mentioned these pictures that there are so many insecticides uh, which has been available in the market, and many people are using at their home. Many people have their garden outside, and accidentally if somebody put these in your kitchen accidentally, and during kitchen and during making food, if someone accidentally put it into your food, people die. So it is more like an accidental poisoning. Why? Because these are all present at either at your home, and if misplaced, putting in a wrong cabin, wrong place, it can be very fatal. That's why it is recommended to keep these items away from the home, outside the shelf, outside your storehouse, which will be recommended. Otherwise it may misplace and may cause toxicities, and usually children are affected by most because they are going in the home all around every place, and parents do not take care of them, and then these poisoning occur. So it is very important to understand. Then we have organophosphate poisoning has been used. Treatment, when we talk about maintenance of the vital signs, and number two important thing is that decontamination to prevent further absorption, removal as clothing and washing. So we have to understand that they are absorbed very fast, so we need to prevent the absorption. And then obviously if somebody is exposed because of the cloths, like for example this poisoning has been used in the gardening or in the farm or in the agriculture site. So when a person come using that organophosphate, they must need to wash their whole body, they must need to take a clean bath, so that uh, they may not affected from these small particles. Then parental atropine, paralidoxime in high dose is the treatment. And prevention, auto injections of paralidoxime and atropine is available, and I already mentioned they are used in chemical warfare, which uh, the World Health Organization is try to ban them. So the poisoning consists of, again, how can you memorize? Keywords have been made to memorize, like sludge. S stand for salivation, sweating. L stand from lacrimation. U stand for urination. D stand for defection. GI distress from G you can take, and E from emesis. So you can memorize using these keywords. And then dumbbell, we already discussed last time what is dumbbells: diarrhea, urination, meiosis, bronchospasm, emesis, lacrimation, salivation. And if you take a look, I give you some in the upper slides. I mentioned these some of the signs, and I already mentioned some of the keywords. So you can maneuver them and you can make your own keywords to memorize. This all I leave on the students, and this is the best way to memorize the signs and symptoms. And because there are so many sign and symptoms for the different classification of drugs, so sometimes it is very difficult for the student to memorize. So this is one of the good way how you memorize them. Then I mentioned another important thing, that this is one tragedy that has been happened in India, in Bihar, and the title is Bihar Midday Meal Tragedy. What happened that 23 school children have been died from food poisoning during midday meal. What happened that children aged from 4 to 12 eat rice, pulses, soya bean, half hour. They have a stomach pain with diarrhea and vomiting, and 16 children die on the spot. And was later found out that it was contaminated with organophosphate. So I saw how dangerous they are, and I already show you some of the news cuttings, and you see that student, it is so much big tragedy that students, our children, they come to school for study, and when parents get to know that they are not with us, they are no more, so how big tragedy this is. And 23 is a big number that that children die, and because of the organophosphate. That's why I mentioned before that please keep these pesticides away from your kitchen, away from your home, outside your storehouse, and to avoid any further problem. Then they are different, as they also use as nerve agents, and I already mentioned these are banned, but they has been used for um, killing Kim Jong Nam within 20 minutes, according to the Malaysian sources. And this nerve agent is named as VX nerve agent. And I take some clipping from the news article and from the video. And actually, he Kim Jong Nam is actually the brother of North Korea leader that was killed by using toxic nerve agent. So thank you so much for today's lecture. Hope to see you again in more lectures.